little background. I am from Virginia. In 2018, I moved to New York City to go to LIM College, which is a fashion business school in Manhattan. And during I was unpaid, I was working nights and weekends at Free People to make money to eat in New York City, which is very expensive. And then I was also a full-time student. And I remember every day I was begging as I fell asleep at night, I was thinking, gosh, I just wish I could have a break, because I had no free time. I was constantly packed with my internship, school, everything. And then I got exactly what I wished for, the pandemic hit. And I was forced to leave New York City, all of my friends that I had made at college, and go back to my childhood bedroom in Virginia. None of my friends from high school or anything came back to Virginia. It was just me alone with my parents, my brother, and my childhood dog. And after about 2 days, I was regretting ever complaining about being busy in New York City, because I would have given anything to go back to that. And I grew up obsessed with YouTubers and influencers. I watched all of their videos, and I always wanted to be like them. I remember one day in high school, I came down to my parents, and I was like, hear me out. We're gonna buy a Canon G7X. I know it's $800, but it's gonna be worth it, and I'm gonna start making YouTube videos. And my parents were like, yeah, nice try, that's crazy. And so during the pandemic, I realized for the foreseeable future, I was not going to have to interact with a single other person, and that was kind of always what held me back from ever starting to create content. I knew, whether it was high school or college, I was gonna have to go in and face these people who are seeing what I'm posting the next day, and for the first time during the pandemic, that wasn't a possibility. So I finally just decided, I don't even think I had the TikTok app, if I'm being honest, but I finally downloaded it. Everybody was making whipped coffee and doing the renegade, and I just decided, why not? Thank God I never did any TikTok dances. However, I did start posting very cringy fashion content, and then I started posting, I think my first video that ever went viral, and maybe got 500,000 views, which at the time to me was the most insane thing ever. I shared a fashion school check-in. I shared about being an unpaid intern and first celebrity stylist and working at Free People and all of these things. And people were interested in that and started following me and asking questions, and I started to just be transparent about it. And I have still girls that come up to me to this day that say, I go to LIM College because of you. I never would have even known it existed if it wasn't for you, which is a really cool thing. And then I started, when the thrift stores started opening back up during the pandemic, I would go and make thrifting content, and that's where I really started to gain an actual following of girls who were interested in fashion and were inspired to go thrifting or to go find things. And I started a business where I would go and thrift outfits based on people's personal style. They would send me a Pinterest board, and then I would go to the thrift store and find them 2 outfits based off of that style inspo. And I had gained a couple 100,000 followers at this point, and I still had never even done a brand deal. Influencer marketing at that time was still very heavily on Instagram. It really hadn't shifted to TikTok, I don't think. But I also didn't understand that you could do brand deals or work with brands on TikTok, because there's not a lot of transparency in that space. And so I was working 80 hours a week doing these thrift style bundles. I was having so much fun, and it was also a great thing to make content about. And then I slowly started sharing more of my life, and it's kind of evolved very slowly into what it is today, where I am vulnerable and share about my personal experiences and hope other people can relate to them. And I guess I've been on TikTok now for 5 years, which is very crazy. Feels like 2. But yeah, now I'm here today. I don't even know how I would categorize my content at this moment other than lifestyle, but
well, as you said, as an influencer, you are in the business of setting trends and surfing them as well. So are there any other digital creators in the beginning that you really looked up to or tried to see their patterns of what they did and try to copy with their style?
Yeah, I think obviously, like I mentioned, originally YouTubers were my greatest inspiration. Aspen Ovard, Bethany Moda, I'm sure a lot of you watched them as well. But obviously it's hard to emulate and kind of copy. They were my inspiration, but it's hard to copy their content or whatever, because they're on a longer form platform like YouTube, and TikTok is a completely different world. I will say a creator that inspired me towards the beginning was Victoria Paris, because she really, really put in the work, and she grew so quickly, and I was really inspired by that. She hit 1 million followers very, very quickly, and it was because of how many times a day that she was posting, and I took so much inspiration from that. She was also living in New York City, and I definitely drew inspiration from the type of content she was posting, but I started to post like 8 times a day because it was working for her, and it started working for me, and her drive and dedication did really inspire me a lot. And I would post genuinely 8 videos a day, and not all of them are great, but it really, at the beginning, was kind of quantity over quality. And then I would see, of the 8 videos that I posted in that day, what 2 or 3 did well, what 2 or 3 had a decent amount of views. I would private the ones that often didn't get a lot of views, and then I would leave the other videos that were doing well up, and I would just repeat that every single day, and with time, I did see a lot of growth.
In relation to that idea of community, you've shared many moments with your best friend Jazz online, highlighting the close bonds within the female influencer community. So how has the support of other female content creators influenced your own brand and journey within the industry?
That's a good question. The support from women, I mean, looking around this room, everybody's a girl. I could not do it without the girls, genuinely. I mean, not only in just my personal life, my female friendships are the most important thing I have. I love my boyfriend, but I'd be nothing without the women in my life. On top of that, you will find in this industry of being an influencer, a content creator, living in New York City, your female viewers are the most powerful thing you have. You will find the men don't do a lot for you in terms of views. They really don't mean a lot. And I know that sounds bad, but it's the truth. I mean, if you're a content creator and you have a largely male following, if you send those audience demographics to a brand, most of the time they won't work with you because the men are not influenced and they don't relate and they don't engage with your content in the way that women do and the way women show up for you. I mean, I know it sounds crazy to say, but a woman with 200,000 strong female followers is much more valuable to a brand than a creator with 5 million followers where a large percentage of those are men. So I value and respect the women that follow me so much, and I would be nothing without them.
On that topic of the female community, in your podcast with Becca Moore, you discussed the double standards influencer space, especially in a female-dominated industry, where a woman's social media career is dismissed as unworthy in the same respect as traditional entrepreneurship. So how, if at all, do you see the skepticism stemming from deeper biases about the value of women's labor and success work within the industry as well?
I could beat this topic into the ground for days, and I have. I think there's so many different perspectives to it. I think that, I mean, one of my favorite things I see constantly is go get a real job. It's I'm good, I'm happy with where I'm at. And I don't think that a lot of the criticism women face, if the men were saying a very similar thing, I don't think that they would face that same level of criticism. I also think there's a very big stigma around women. Influencing is one of the only female-dominated industries where women are absolutely killing it. And they're able to provide for themselves, provide for their families, become financially stable. And I think that's so amazing, but I see so much negativity surrounding that and so much hate about women making money and being successful. And I understand some of it, but at the same time, I feel like I get a lot of negative comments about making more money than men, and it's why is that a negative thing? That should be a very positive thing. And so I'm very, very proud to be in this space and be successful. It's all I've ever wanted to be. And yeah, I don't know, I think that with cancel culture, I feel like it does hyperfixate on women as well. I don't think that half the things that women have been canceled for are very valid. But there's some things where I do think I've heard a man say that and no one has batted an eye, and now a woman said it, and there's, hundreds of videos of discourse on this topic that I just don't think anybody would even think of if a man was to say the same thing.
On the topic of changing dynamics through social media, the Daily Mail points you as a socialite. When traditionally past socialites such as Paris Hilton and the Kardashians got their rise through tabloid attention, so more traditional mediums. But with the rise of social media, anyone can become a socialite if they build a large enough platform to publicize themselves. So what are your thoughts on this switch in dynamics?
Yeah, I think this is super interesting. I wouldn't consider myself a socialite. I would consider myself a normal 24-year-old girl living in Manhattan, but I do understand kind of where that stems from. I think, in a sense, the Kardashians and Paris Hilton were the original influencers. They just didn't have social media. They were kind of doing it in a different way, but they were essentially known for nothing, right? Like, that's what influencers are a lot of the times. They're not actors, they're not dancers, they're just known for their personality. And so I guess I can understand where the socialite comes from. But I always actually think of Kim Kardashian was relatively inspiring to me at the beginning of my social media journey, which I know sounds kind of silly, but I remember her talking about how she never said no to anything at the beginning of her career, and that's what led her to so much success. And love them or hate them, the Kardashians are successful, we all know them. And so I really took that advice to heart when I was first starting out making content. And I think the never say no advice can even apply to making friends in a new city. It's, if you're invited to anything, even if it doesn't seem fun, any event, any club opening, any restaurant, even if you think the food looks disgusting, you go because you never know what could happen. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what networking opportunities there can be. Obviously, with the exception of like if a creepy man is inviting you to do something, don't go. Please say no. But I truly, some of the biggest blessings in my life and the most amazing things, like I would not be here today if I didn't go to things that made me uncomfortable or that I didn't want to go to. I mean, I met my best friend Jazz, who I host a podcast with, at an event that I didn't really want to go to. I didn't know anybody, but I was just like, you know what, never say no, I have nothing else to do. The worst thing that happens is it's a waste of a night and nothing comes of it. The best thing that happens is you meet somebody amazing.
In regards to making it in the industry, a majority of the revenue from an influencer is reaped from brand promotions, sometimes at the cost of a fading product for the sake of profit. How do you mitigate the balance in your career between representing an authentic identity?
This is really hard, and I struggled with this for a while. Because, I mean, I don't come from a super wealthy background. I had $100,000 in student debt. And to see, especially at the beginning of my career influencing and making content and getting brand deals, to see an email come into your inbox offering you a certain amount of money that you've never even been able to fathom before, and having it be for one 30-second video, and to think that is so easy, like objectively it's not hard to make that video and to get that amount of money, it's a no-brainer. But you really do have to understand that the trust that you have with your audience is the most valuable thing that you have, and it is worth no amount of money. And I've learned this the hard way. In the beginning, I had done some brand deals because, like I just said, an email comes in, it's an amount of money where I'm like, oh my gosh, a huge chunk of this can go towards paying off my student debt. Why would I not do this, right? It's objectively easy. And one time I remember I was 20 years old and I wasn't, the smartest. And I was embarrassingly deep into this contract that I was working with this brand, and I thought I was doing like a drugstore makeup type of video. And then turns out, again, because I didn't read the contract because I was 20 years old, it was for clothes, and the clothes were very ugly. And it was too late, I was in too deep, I had to commit and do this brand deal. And I got on my TikTok and I said, hey everyone, like, love these outfits. And all of the comments were so mean. And rightfully so, I agree with every single one. The outfits were ugly, and I shouldn't have done the brand deal. And in that moment, it really made me realize, because back then I had a lot less followers, so I would get a lot less hate. There was less comments in general, but this video had plenty of comments, and they were mean. And it really made me realize, though, this amount of money was not worth losing the trust that I have built with my audience. And in the long term, when you turn down these deals for whatever amount of money, it will pay off because you will get something better and you will keep that trust with your audience. It's still hard to me to this day because, I mean, if you see an amount of money come into your inbox, it's really hard to pass up. It is, but I always just have to tell myself it'll be worth it. I don't stand with that. I don't align with that. My audience won't want to see me posting about that, and I do have to pass on things, but it is still hard, and it's still a line I walk each day.
I think that's really good advice for those in the audience who want to become content creators. I do want to switch topics into your life in New York. So style stigmas in a city reflects its cultural and societal norms. So for instance, New York is known for its polished neutrals and its effortless chic, while cities in LA embrace more of like a natural, relaxed style. So how do you think moving or spending time in each city really reflects and shapes your own style?
That's a really great question. I think I dress very New York. I've lived there for 7 years. And so subconsciously, without even trying, I have started to dress like a New Yorker. And I will say, the OG NYC influencers are the people who don't even have social media accounts that are walking the streets in the West Village or in Soho. And they are truly where I draw my style inspo from, is people that literally have no interest in even posting at all. There's an account actually called Watching New York, if any of you have ever heard of it. I highly recommend you go follow. He's just a photographer. His name is Johnny, and he photographs New Yorkers in the wild. And some of the outfits are crazy, and I would never even wear them because I could not pull them off. But it's so interesting to see how New Yorkers dress, and that is truly where I get all of my style inspo from, is these people on the street living their everyday lives. But it is definitely interesting because the way people in New York dress is very different than how people dress in San Francisco. I learned this the hard way this weekend visiting. I decided to kind of dress like a New Yorker, and I was wearing like my little boots and everything, and I did not realize how brutal the hills would be, and now I understand why people in San Francisco wear a lot of athleisure and sneakers, because it's necessary. And so I think obviously things like that have impact on the way that you dress.
Do you have any thoughts on Berkeley style?
I just thought you guys all look great. I just got here today. So I've been here for a couple of hours, so I don't know if I've seen enough yet.
I do want to switch topics again to collaboration and the idea of community. So while there is a lot of collaboration and community within the content creation space, you guys are still essentially competing for the same viewers. So how do you maintain relationships within your communities while also prioritizing your own personal success?
This is a really good question. I believe there's space for everyone, and if you post authentically, your right audience will always find you. I also think my relationships I have with other fellow content creators are so important to me, not even in a sense of, obviously it's great to post with them and collaborate, and if you have somebody on your podcast and you go on their podcast and you do a podcast swap, you obviously exchange viewers and then get more listeners on your podcast and vice versa, and that's all great. But there is really no transparency in this space, and there's not answers to the questions that you have in the realm of influencing. You cannot Google, does this brand work with influencers? Like, nothing will come up. How much should I charge for a brand deal? How much should I charge for this brand? You can't find the answers to those questions unless you're having conversations. And I think that's so important. I love when content creators online as well are transparent with their audience. My friend Bran, he actually talks a lot about TikTok transparency, which I think is amazing, and it answers a lot of these questions, because I think that's what also causes influencing and social media content creators to get a lot of hate, is the lack of information, because it does seem like everything is so easy, and oh my gosh, they're not even doing any work, and all of that. And I think that having those relationships with other content creators and being able to have those discussions is very motivating to me. I never really view anything as jealousy, even if I see a content creator doing something that I really would like to do. I view that as motivation, and I put that on my inspo board and my vision board, and I say, like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to work towards that, instead of feeling like, why does she get that and I don't? Because I think that attitude really gets you nowhere in life.
Earlier in your response, you said talking about working with certain brands or deciding which brands you want to work with. So influencer culture objectively has reshaped how businesses and restaurants and thrift stores gain visibility. So sometimes like making or breaking a brand overnight. So how do you see the role of influencers impacting the success or failure of a business?
I think influencers have a huge impact on business. I mean, I think it's amazing in the sense influencers can absolutely blow up a business. Sometimes they can ruin things, if I'm being honest. Like sometimes, you know, a restaurant that you always go to, an influencer posts about it, and then all of a sudden there's a line out the door every single day. But that is also great because the business is then succeeding. I mean, I love to support small businesses as much as I can, and it makes me so happy. I had this past summer actually an artist reach out, and she had made these couple of paintings for my house in the Hamptons, and she's like, I just think these would fit perfectly. I made these, if I could send them to you. I was like, of course. And I made a video. It got like 700,000 views, and she has messaged me several times since thanking me and being like, you have no idea what this has done for me. I'm, you know, a stay-at-home mom, and this has completely transformed my business. And I think that is so incredible, and that makes me so happy. But I think that so many influencers have the impact to do that with small businesses as well as just new up-and-coming restaurants. I think that TikTok and Instagram have become the new search engines in a way, where when we're looking for a restaurant to go to in a new city, I'm not going to Google and typing in where do I eat in San Francisco. I'm going on TikTok, and I want to hear real testimonies from influencers and content creators and real people explaining why they like a restaurant, what they ordered, what not to order. And so I think that influencers, especially in the restaurant space, have such an impact. And I also think that just having a social presence in general is extremely important for brands. Again, like I said, we all look for those real life recommendations on social media. Even if you're not an influencer, if you're a hairdresser and you have a social presence, even if you have 5 followers, it's nice as a client or potential client to be able to go to that hairdresser's page and scroll through and see tagged photos and see their real clients. And yeah.
In relation to that social presence, it's a lot of pressure and a lot of consistent work. So where do you usually go to kind of de-stress or declutter and have your alone time basically to try to rejuvenate yourself?
That's a good question. I'm unfortunately chronically online, and I do find myself scrolling way too much. And sometimes the hate and everything can definitely get to me. I mean, I have dogs, and they're like my therapy dogs, and they definitely help. I also think just recognizing that social media is fake at the end of the day, and in the same way I was saying this earlier, like, people online are, it's become very normalized to essentially cyberbully people, because it's really easy to hide behind a keyboard and type out these mean comments, but these people would never come up to you in real life and say those things. It's the same way, like, I post online every single day to millions of people, and I have no issue hitting upload, but I come in here and talk to 100 of you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, very nervous. And so I think recognizing that social media is fake and not everything you see is a reality is a really helpful thing for me to just realize, walk out in the streets of New York and be like, this is real life.
A big part of that like chaotic experience was actually a video you posted in March of 2024. It was a viral video that garnered over 52 million views. It was you being punched in the head in Manhattan. So you recently shared updates on your involvement in the Salem's indictment, as well as bringing greater attention to victims sharing a similar story. So what's your perspective of living in New York and the dangers of city life as a woman?
Yeah, this is a good question. So for a little bit, definitely TikTok algorithms, and a lot of videos from girls that had similar experience of getting punched in the head or assaulted or whatever it may be from even like years past were starting to now get on everyone's For You page because the topic was trending, because everybody's searching, girl punched in the head in New York, and then now everybody's For You page is filled with every other video, a girl speaking about how she got punched in the head, when that wasn't necessarily the reality. All those stories were obviously like true, and I'm not discrediting anybody's experience, but it was not a serial puncher running around Manhattan as the kind of media started to portray it as. And so I didn't actually end up sharing a lot of what happened after. I shared when the media posted who the band that assaulted me was, and that was kind of the final update I gave, which was almost a year ago, like to the day at this point, which is kind of crazy. I did end up going in and actually testifying in front of a grand jury, and they ruled it as a felony, but I was told not to really talk about it because of just the legal process in general. I'm not even sure where it stands as. I don't resonate with that at all. I've lived in New York for 7 years, like I said, I believe. Crazy. And I've done some very questionable things. Living in New York, I've been intoxicated, coming home from the club at 4 a.m. on the subway, and I've never felt in danger once. I do feel this was a freak incident, and while of course there are dangerous things that happen, it did give me a reality check too, be a little more aware of my surroundings. Maybe when you're walking in the street, you don't need to have your head buried in your phone. Well, I still shouldn't have been assaulted for sending an email and looking down at my phone. I am more aware of my surroundings, which I think every woman should be in every city, anywhere you are in the world. That's always a great thing to be. But I do not think New York is dangerous. If any of you are even remotely considering either visiting or moving to New York, I do not think there's anything to be scared of. I love New York. It's changed my life. I will defend that city with my chest. It's the best city in the world, and I don't think that it's any more unsafe than any other kind of major city.
I think we also finally got the mic.
Oh, okay.
I was going to ask, do you think that reshaped your approach to social media in terms of what you posted, or how you approached what kind of content you wanted to post?
I mean, that was pretty on brand with what I was already posting. I kind of always just post very timely and current to what's going on in my life. And that's why it's hard for me to also, when people say, oh, what do you post about if they don't know? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say, because I really do just share anything and everything. And so, yeah, I don't know. I would say I'm glad I shared that story, because I do think that was an important thing to make other people aware of. And I think that's what's really great about TikTok as well, is we're now able to see these stories and bring media attention to things that otherwise would never get that attention through traditional media, like on TV. I feel like, especially we've seen even with the hurricanes that were happening in Florida, I think that we never even would have seen anything remotely so. Like, I don't really turn on the news every single day, and I don't think a lot of people do. And so I think that's what's really great about TikTok, is it's these people sharing their personal stories, and we're getting a really inside look at the truth, because there is so much misinformation in the world.
Thank you. I was going to also ask, what do you think has been your greatest challenge ever since you had this rise to fame?
Creation is the best job in the world. It's everything I could have ever asked for and more. I'm so grateful to be doing it. Like, you truly do not understand. I was swallowed in $100,000 of student debt, not even knowing how I was going to pay this off once I graduated. And now to be able to be a first-time home buyer at 23 years old and provide for myself, like, it is the best job in the world, and I'm forever grateful for that. I will say, mentally, it has been challenging. It's not a hard job. I fully believe being an ER nurse is way harder, trust me, but it is definitely hard to, no one is meant to have that many eyes on them, period. So it's definitely a really hard adjustment to have people making commentary on your life, good or bad. I, before starting social media, didn't even know what anxiety was. Like, I literally never felt it. And now it's something I struggle with every single day. And it's because I'm constantly being perceived and worried about what people are saying about me, what people think. Is what I just posted okay? Are people mad? And so that's been a hard thing to balance, but ultimately, it's still the best job in the world. But I do struggle sometimes with the hate.
And from that, what's the biggest lesson, maybe for those in the audience who do want to pursue something in content creation, that you've learned throughout this entire journey?
That's a great question. I don't believe in manifesting in the sense I'm not like sitting there writing in a journal every day or like using crystals. It's not my personal forte. However, I do believe in speaking things into existence, and I truly believe with everything in my life I've done that. I can look back at a lot of things in my life and realize that I did not make the safe decision. I actually took a huge risk, but I always knew it would pay off. And when people would ask, how is that gonna, like, how are you gonna make that work? Like moving to New York City, everyone I knew was like, how are you gonna afford that? How are you gonna pay for that? And I was like, I don't know, but I will figure it out. I had a zero plan, but I knew that I would make it work. And I think believing in yourself in that way so strongly, I don't think it's magic, but I think you will subconsciously, every single decision you make in your life going forward, you will align with that vision that you have. And I mean, I even have a video of myself from when the pandemic started. I was like, hey guys, when quarantine's over, I'm gonna be TikTok famous. I'm gonna be in the Sway house, like whatever. Yeah, very cringy. And I wouldn't consider myself famous, but I obviously have turned it into my career, which is what my goal was at the beginning of the pandemic. And I always believed in myself. And I also started to care less about what people think of me. I think those are the two things that I really resonate with, is just embarrassment is a social construct. I've always said this, and I know that sounds funny, but the only person that can make you feel embarrassed is you. Like, you can choose to feel embarrassed, or you can say, I don't care if people are making fun of me. I know I believe in myself, and I'm gonna make this work. And that's what I've lived my life by, and it's worked out so far, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughtful answer. We are gonna wrap up our conversation today, but before we head into Q&A, I did wanna ask you a few fun rapid fire questions. So the first one being sweet green or kava?
I love both, but sweet green all the way. They just got fries.
The next one might be a little tough. It's give up coffee forever or never be able to order takeout ever again.
If I'm living in New York City, I can definitely never order takeout again because we can just walk and like go eat somewhere and pick it up. I can't live without coffee, so.
Which iconic New York City show best describes your lifestyle? Gossip Girl, How I Met Your Mother, Sex and the City, or Girls?
Okay, I know this is crazy, but I had never watched any of those shows prior to living in New York, which is literally insane. But I watched Sex and the City about a year ago, changed my life. And I really resonate. I think every girl should watch that show because it teaches you more about friendship and life and everything than, I don't know, I would highly recommend.
Uggs year-round or sneakers year-round?
I've become an UGG hater recently, so I'm gonna say sneakers all the way.
Fresh blowout or slick back bun?
I look horrendous in a slick back bun, so blowout all the way.
And hottest take on a fashion trend?
Ooh, I think capris I've seen are coming back in. I'm not doing that. It's not for me.
Would you rather live in New York City, but you have to drive everywhere, and then you have to parallel park if you want to stop the car? Or you live in Los Angeles, you have to walk everywhere?
Oh my god. I'm still gonna say New York City, I just don't know if I'd leave my apartment that much.
What's the better workout, solid core or core power?
100% solid core.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the answers, and thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Do you have any last words or advice you'd like to say to the audience?
I think I kind of said this before, but truly, just believe in yourself. Every single decision you make, be 100% confident in it, and you'll go far.
Awesome. Now for the audience. Oh, yeah. Now for the fun part, we're going to do an audience Q&A. If you raise your hand, I'll call on you, and one of our members will come over and hand you a mic. Awesome. Up here in the front.
You said that Sex and the City was like the show, you know, you watched last summer. But what Sex and the City character do you resonate most with, or like the girls?
Oh, okay. I unfortunately think if I was to be one, I would kind of be Carrie, even though she has her flaws. I think I'm a mix of all. I can like pull little things from each, but I would say maybe Carrie and Samantha. I love how vulgar and honest and real Samantha is. She's my goals and what I aspire to be.
Thank you.
Over there in the back. Oh, yeah.
I was just wondering, given like how influencer space is getting a lot of like respect, I guess, in the traditional media forms and traditional businesses, where do you see the future of the industry going for influencers?
Ooh, I still think while it has a lot of respect, I also do think it's looked at as a joke in a sense. Like I always feel silly saying I'm an influencer, but I do see with every year this continuing to be, I mean, I think most brands have moved to a form of influencer marketing because, I mean, you can use Jacob Elordi in a commercial on TV and I don't really know how impactful that is, but if you find an influencer that has a really strong following of girls that trust them, I think that is 10 times more impactful than a billboard or a random commercial on TV. So I really do think if any brands are not on the wave of influencer marketing, I see in the future that continuing to go forward. It might not even be on TikTok. I think in the future there might even be a new app that we don't know about, but I think influencers are here to stay.
Over there on the left.
So I know you said in the beginning of your career you were more, you could like, you were just taking all like the brand deals that you could take. Now that you can be more selective in your brand deal, what aspects do you look for in brand deals before committing yourself to one?
That's a great question. The amount of deliverables is really important to me because obviously nobody likes to see a million ads on their page. So if a brand is offering, you know, X amount of money, but they want you to make 17 videos, you don't want to swarm your followers with that. Even if you like the brand, it's nothing to do with that. It's the fact that nobody wants to see you post about the same thing that many times in a row. And so that's something I really aim to get down as well. Also, exclusivity is a big thing. You know, I'm making this up, but if you were to work with Amazon, sometimes they'll say, okay, well then you can't work with Walmart, Target, Kmart, whatever, you know, brands that are in a similar niche. And so that can be a difficult thing sometimes because obviously you might get another deal and then you can't do it because of the exclusivity. So those are two huge things. I also just want to make sure that even if I like the brand, I want to know what product they want me to be talking about because if they're launching, you know, a new moisturizer, I want to make sure I've tried that and I've used it and I know I like it. It doesn't break my skin out because I'm not going to get online and be like, everyone go buy this moisturizer, and then we find out it's actually horrible for your skin.
Up here in the front.
Hi, by the way, I love you, and I've been following you since like forever. Anyways, why do you think people are feeling more comfortable / real / transparent on social media? For example, Alex Earl's podcast, Hot Mess.
I think for so long, when I was watching YouTubers at least, no one was really honest or transparent. I do think that it was very aspirational kind of content, and that's what we all watched and we loved, but it was all fake. And I think that was really fun to watch, but I would always kind of leave those videos and feel like I wasn't doing enough. I would think, you know, okay, well, I didn't go to yoga this morning and then get a green juice and do all of this stuff, you know, which I think aspirational content is great for that. But I think the rise of authentic content and real content, that's why Alex Earl blew up so quickly, is because everyone's like, yeah, I get hungover and sleep in my makeup and then like go throw up. You know, I'm just being honest, but everybody's done it. And I think that was very shocking. She's not the only or first person to do it, but obviously we can all relate to that in a sense, and I think people really appreciated that level of like vulnerability in a sense. And I think that form of influencing is definitely here to stay, and that's the type of content creators that I love to follow as well.
Up here in the front.
Hi, I love you as well. I wanted to know more on like the business side. When you started to pop off, when did
that's a really good question. I think now there is more information on that where my answer would change if I was like starting now. I didn't know. Like I had one random manager reach out in my inbox and I realized like, oh wait, I need a manager. And so I just signed on the spot, didn't read the contract, like really, really, really dumb, but I was also 20 years old and I was just like, oh, anybody that wants to manage me, of course, this is great. And so I have gone through a couple different managers until I'm at the one that I'm currently at now. I've kind of leveled up with each one in a sense, and I love my manager, but it definitely took a while to get there. And I think that's why transparency within the industry is so important, because how would you ever know those things? You wouldn't, that you literally can't Google it. But I think, you know, especially it's not even, it is hard to like navigate your own inbox and, you know, the brands coming in. There's a lot of back and forth. It's not just like, hey, do you want to make this video? Here's this amount of money. There's so much discussion, and there's a lot of legal aspects that I am just frankly not smart enough to understand with the exclusivity and usage and whitelisting and all of these different things. I don't have the mental capacity to do that, so I think a manager is such a crucial thing in any like content creator's next steps.
Over there on the right.
What do you think the best area of New York City would be to move to for someone to dream of it?
Ooh.
In the late 20s.
Okay, love. I think everywhere in New York is so great. I've lived in like 7 different neighborhoods. I've literally never renewed a lease in New York. I've moved every single year. I think right now, the West Village is kind of, I feel like, the pop-in place that everyone is in. I think it's really fun. There's great bars, there's great restaurants. It's kind of becoming a little bit overdone in a sense, but I still do think it's really awesome, and I would recommend. The East Village is also really fun. Soho. Upper East Side is great too. It's a little bit more chill. There's like Central Park. I don't know. You really can't go wrong in New York.
Over there and back.
I just wanted to ask, during the process of TikTok essentially getting banned, what was your mindset during that time, and did you have sort of a way to prep for your main platform possibly being gone?
Yeah, I first crashed out. I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost my job. But I do think it was a reality check for a lot of content creators in a sense to diversify your content to other platforms. You really should never be reliant on just one platform. I already had, you know, a following on Instagram, definitely not as large, and I also have a podcast, so I do have 2 other sources and streams of revenue. So it's not like I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I actually am not going to be able to make $1. But of course, that is a huge hit to like my largest audience, and you know, Instagram just isn't the same as TikTok in my opinion. But I think definitely having multiple different platforms to post on with different types of content. I post different things on Instagram than I do on TikTok, even though some things are syndicated. I think that a lot of the influencer marketing, if TikTok were to go away, I guess we still technically don't know because there's like another potential thing. I don't know what's happening, okay. But I do think influencer marketing would just move over to other platforms. Like I think it would go back to Instagram, like kind of how it was before TikTok existed. But yeah, my podcast is also a really great thing, and that also really, I already am going to start a business on the side for longevity as well, aside from influencing, but the TikTok ban was a reality check more than ever that I really need to get moving on that.
Over there.
Hi, I'm really interested to know your opinion on networking and kind of things that you have benefited you. It's really hard to put yourself out there, and especially obviously in front of millions of people, but also when you're at these brand parties or these brand shows, things like that. So I'd love to know what you think can help with it.
Yeah. I still struggle with this. I have social anxiety like everyone else. I think that networking is so important, and I personally, my kind of strategy when I'm walking into a room is just find one person that looks approachable or that I can talk to, or one person I even slightly know, and go up to them and you cling to them until you find another person and another person, and then suddenly you're talking to a huge group. But I actually think also is in the influencing space, a lot of people have, you know, kind of resting bitch faces, but everyone is actually really nice, and if you just take the leap of faith and go and put yourself out there and start a conversation, you'll find that a lot of people are very, very nice, and it actually is easy to talk to if you, or they are easy to talk to if you're the one putting yourself out there first. You kind of just have to take that little leap, which I know is hard, because I struggle with it as well. Walking up to somebody and starting a conversation is a difficult thing to do.
Unfortunately, given our time, that has to be the last question. I do want to thank you again so much for this talk. I'm sure everybody loved this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
I am going to hand it off to the board president, Carolyn Moore.
Okay, thank you so much for that incredibly insightful conversation, and to the audience for all of your questions. As a token of appreciation to our speakers, we'd like to gift a handmade poster made by a member of our communications committee. And so for this event, okay, this poster was made by Allison Lynn, and I'd like to invite Kelly and Nor up to present the poster to our speaker. And we at the Berkeley Forum are a nonprofit student-run organization. So everything you see here today was organized by our dedicated team of students. For this event, we'd like to take a moment to recognize, again, our event managers, Kelly and Nor. Our moderator, Lisa. Our tech and multimedia lead, Casper. Our events lead, Danny. Our communications lead, Ava. Our graphic designer, Caitlin. Outreach, Iris. And our poster designer, Alex. We also hope that you'll join us at our next event on April 2nd. We'll be inviting Jim Tan, who is a content creator, influencer, and model. So she goes by California is Too Casual on Instagram and TikTok. And she's an advocate for the concept that fashion is for all ages. So to register for the event, please be on the lookout for more information coming soon on our website and our Instagram. All right, thank you again for coming to our event. If you would like to give us any feedback for upcoming events, feel free to scan the QR code on the top right. To learn more about our organization, follow us on Instagram and X, and also visit our website for more information. We also have our donation link up here. Again, we are a student-run nonprofit organization, so any amount of donations would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, please feel free to scan any of the QR codes or go to the Venmo at the bottom. Okay, and now is the meet and greet. So please, if you are interested in coming up and talking to Halley, please create 2 lines going one this way and that way in.